Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Rama Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Rama Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivadari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivadari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivadari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Jasundara Brajajanandana Jasundara Brajajanandana Yamunatira Vanachari Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivadari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Vishnu Patramahangsa Parijagacharya Astatarasata Sisimat His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki Gaur Premanandi Okay, 24, 25 through 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, and 34. There's no purports. I think I'm just going to go to verse 34, which is the last verse of the chapter. And then we'll go back and read the verses that don't have purports. Text 34, 8:29, 8:20, 34. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Padam Dutiyam Kramatas Trivish Padam Tapam Navai Tritiyaya Tidiyam Anopyapi Ukramasyangri Uparit Ato Maharjanabhyam Tapasa Param Gata Padam Dutiyam Kramatas Tri Vishtapam Davai Tatiyaya Tadiyam Anvopi Ukramasyangrir Upariyato Maharjanabhyam Tapasak Param Gata Padam Dutiyam Kramatas Trivishtapam Navai Tatiyaya Tadiyam Avapi Ukramasyangrir Uparayata Maharjanabhyam Tapasak Param Gataha
Padam Dutiyam Kramatas Trivastapam
Padam Dutiyam Kramatas Trivishtapam
Navai Tatiyaya Tadiyam Anvapi
Navai Tatiyaya Tadiyam Anvapi Ukramasyangri Upariyato Maharjanabhyam Tapasak Param Gata Padam Dutiyam Kramatas Tvidvishtapam Navai Tatiyaya Tadiyam Anvapi Ukramasyangri Upariyato Maharjanabhyam Tapasak Param Gata. Anyone on the ladies' side? Padam Dutiyam Kramatas Tvidvishtapam Navai Tatiyaya Tadiyam Anvapi Ukramasyangri Upariyata Maharjanabhyam Tapasak Param Gata Padam Dutiyam Kramatas Tvidvishtapam Navai Tatiyaya Tadiyam Anvapi Ukramasyangri Upariyata Padam, step. Dvitiyam, second. Kramataha, advancing. Trivishtapam, all of the heavenly planets. Na, not. Vai, indeed. Tritiyaya, for the third step. Tadiyam, of the Lord. Anu api, only a spot of land remained. O Kramasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who performs uncommon activities. Angrihi, steps occupying above and below. Upari, higher and higher. Ato, now. Mahajjanabhyam, then Maharloka and Janaloka. Tapasaha, that Tapaloka. Param, beyond that. Gataha, approached. The translation of that verse is, as the Lord took his second step, he covered the heavenly planets, and not even a spot remained for the third step. For the Lord's foot extended higher and higher beyond Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and even Satyaloka. End of chapter. Let us go back and read the verses that don't have purports, and then we'll read this purport. You're going to start with 24. So it's 8, 20, 24. Bali Maharaj saw beneath the garments of the Lord who acts wonderfully the evening twilight. In the Lord's private parts he saw the Prajapatis, and in the round portion of the waist he saw himself with his confidential associates. In the Lord's navel he saw the sky. On the Lord's waist he saw the 7 oceans. And on the Lord's bosom he saw all the clusters of stars. Next, my dear king, on the heart of Lord Murari he saw religion. On the chest, both pleasing words and truthfulness. In the mind, the moon. On the bosom, the goddess of fortune with a lotus flower in her hand. On the neck, all the Vedas and all sound vibrations. On the arms, all the demigods headed by King Indra. In both ears, all the directions. On the head, the upper planetary systems. On the hair, the clouds. In the nostrils, the wind. On the eyes, the sun. In the mouth, fire. From his words came all the Vedic mantras. On his tongue was the demigod of water, Varuna Dev. On his eyebrows were the regular principles. On his eyelids were day and night, parentheses. When his eyes were open, it was daytime. When they were closed, it was night. On his forehead was anger, and on his lips was greed. O king, in his touch were lusty desires. In his semen were all the waters. On his back was irreligion, and in his wonderful activities or steps was the fire of sacrifice. On his shadow was death. In his smile was the illusory energy, and on the hairs of his body were all the drugs and herbs. In his veins were all the rivers. On his nails were all the stones. In his intelligence were Brahma, the demigods, and the great saintly persons. And throughout his entire body, the senses were all living entities. moving and stationary. Bali Maharaj thus saw everything in the gigantic body of the Lord. Text 30. O King, when all the demons, the followers of Maharaj Bali, saw the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who held everything within his body, when they saw in the Lord's hand his disc Noda Sudarshan chakra, which generates intolerable heat, and when they heard the tumultuous sound of his bow, all of these caused lamentation within their hearts. 31. The Lord's conch shell named Panchajanya, which made sounds like that of a cloud. The very forcible club named Kaumodaki, the sword named Vidyadhara, with a shield decorated with hundreds of moon-like spots, and also Akshaya Sayaka, the best of quivers. All of these appeared together to offer prayers to the Lord. Next, these associates, headed by Sunanda and other chief associates, and accompanied by all the predominating deities of the various planets, offered prayers to the Lord, who wore a brilliant helmet, bracelets, and glittering earrings that resembled fish. On the Lord's bosom were the locks of hair called Sri Vatsa, and the transcendental jewel named Kaustuba. He wore a yellow garment covered by a belt, and he was decorated by a flower garland surrounded by bees, manifesting himself in this way: O King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose activities are wonderful, covered the entire surface of the earth with one footstep, the sky with his body, and all directions with his arms. Purport. One might argue, quote, since Bali Maharaj promised Vamanadev only the land occupied by its steps, why did Lord Vamana occupy the sky also? Good question. In this regard, Srila Jiva Goswami says that the steps include everything downward and upward. When one stands up, he certainly occupies certain parts of the sky and certain portions of the earth below his feet. Thus, there was nothing uncommon for the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he occupied the entire sky with his body. And then this verse, I'll read the translation in purport. As the Lord took his second step, he covered the heavenly planets, and not even a spot remained for the third step, for the Lord's foot extended higher and higher beyond Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, even Satyaloka. Purport. When the Lord's footstep exceeded the height of all the lokas, including Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka, his nails certainly pierced the covering of the universe. The universe is covered by the 5 material elements: Bhumir, Apalo, Anlo, Vayu, Kam. As stated in the Shastra, these elements are in layers, each 10 times thicker than the previous one. Nonetheless, the nails of the Lord pierced through all these layers and made a hole penetrating into the spiritual world. From this hole, water of the Ganges infiltrated into the material world, and therefore it is said, Padanakanira Janita Jana Pavana. That's Avatar Stotra 5. Because the Lord kicked a hole in the covering of the universe, the water of the Ganges came into this material world to deliver all the fallen souls. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports, 8th canto, 20th chapter. Bali Maharaj surrenders the universe. So there's two parts that we just read. One is the universal form and all of its details, which was seen by not only Bali Maharaj but his associates. Inferred, doesn't say explicitly, but by inference, Vamana gave the power to those seeing the universal form to see the universal form, because one requires the empowerment to see the universal form. That was from Bhagavad Gita. Now in Bhagavad Gita, who saw the universal form? Sanjaya also saw the universal form because he described it. And the description went to Dhritarashtra. Did Dhritarashtra see the universal form? Well, he was blind, so he didn't see anything because he was blind. But through sound, he got the information of the universal form. And we also don't have that capacity, although we're hearing the same sound, the description of Krishna's universal form. So the capacity to see depends upon empowering one to see. A practical example is the deity. One can see the deity and see wood, metal, or stone, or one can see the deity and see form of the Lord. And the kindness of the Lord is to make himself available, although he's this is a detail, but he's the supreme independent, so he doesn't need anybody's anything. Anything comes from him. And yet he places himself as if dependent in his deity form so that we can offer service. We can feed him, we can clothe him, we can take care of him. And Prabhupada's explanation is if we don't, he'll starve. And what is it that he will accept? He'll accept offerings in the categories of offerable items, and he'll accept when those offerable items are offered with love and devotion, along with a tulsi leaf. So we know these things from Scripture. So then it's one thing to know these things from Scripture, and it's another thing to have that experience. Here, this is a description of Bali Maharaj having an experience, and his associates, by the empowerment of the Supreme Lord, they're having the same experience, which is pretty amazing. I mean, the description is amazing, and their experiencing it must have also been overwhelming, amazing, that kind of amazing, just overwhelming. And that's the universal form, with its details and details and details, that surpasses the details of the universal form chapter in Bhagavad Gita. And it differs from the description, we discussed this yesterday, from the description in Canto 2, Chapter 1, the universal form. the principle is nothing exists without the manifestation of that something from the source of that something. And he who is the source of that something, at his own will, as he did here in this case, he, Vamana, manifested this universal form, much to the amazement of the whole assembly. But it's a manifestation of the Supreme Lord, the universal form, or the universe. It's a manifestation of one of his energies. At the same time, the form of the universe is his form. So there's oneness and difference understanding, again, from yesterday. Just a comment, one of the features that differentiates this Vaishnavism and that Vaishnavism, both of whom or all of whom accept the source of everything as a person, there are different descriptions of the energies of the Supreme Lord and the relationship of those energies with the source of those energies. And that particular topic differentiates Vaishnavism. And even within this branch and that branch of the same disciplic succession, they have some variations on the theme of. So it's an important topic for that reason. Sambandha again is an important category of topic. There was the relationship between all things and their source. And there's this Vada, and there's that Vada, and there's the other Vada that answer that question or respond to that question. So ours, very clearly, is Achintya Bheda Tattva. Just spin out on that a little bit. Although these doctrines of the four sampradayas differ, one of the significant points of emphasis of Bhaktisiddhanta was how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his teachings purposefully, not accidentally, but purposely, was to unite those differences. To recognize the differences between the four sampradayas' teachings on this topic, and at the same time to unite them due to the Achintya Bheda Tattva teaching. Now, many of you know all this, but I'm just saying it anyways. One of the books that Bhaktisiddhanta wrote was on this topic, and in his typical style, not only the teachings, but details and details and details of the fundamental precepts of each of those four sampradayas' teachings on the topic of Sambandha Gyan, the source, and the relationship of things with the source. And there are different ways of seeing it, thus different sampradayas. Some see differences, some see oneness, some see oneness within the differences, and there's different points of emphasis. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so Bhaktisiddhanta wrote a book about it, the four sampradayas, and then how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu united. Maybe some of you have been to Mayapur. Anyone here been to Mayapur? A few. Okay. In Mayapur, one of the features of the Mayapur temple at Bhaktisiddhanta's headquarters is on the four corners of the deity, Gandharvika Giridhari, there's a murti of each of the four sampradayas. When I went there so many years ago, the deity that's there today is different than the deity that was there at that time. And then it changed again. So they changed the murtis, but the principle was a fundamental, foundational principle of who was Lord Chaitanya, that he united these four different presentations of Vaishnavism by this important detail, Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. Here's another detail. Another detail is he didn't use that expression. Jiva Goswami used the expression, and it became a fixed representation of Mahaprabhu's teachings following Jiva Goswami. Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. So the universal form is the same as and different from. Different from in a few senses. We discussed this a little bit yesterday. The energy is not the energetic. That which comes from the source of everything is not the source of everything. So there's differences. And this universal form is manifest temporarily, whereas the form of Krishna is present always. Maybe not manifest for our seeing, but present always. And the universal form is sometimes and sometimes withdrawn, sometimes and sometimes withdrawn, the whole cosmic manifestation, thus temporary, made of the inferior energy. So, universal form. Then the second part is the pledge that Bali had given, 3 paces of land, and how the Supreme Lord with 2 paces of land and sky covered the entire universe, including poking a hole in the covering of the universe with his toe. And then when he poked a hole in the coverings of the universe with his toe, which is really big coverings, but it's without the numbers, 10 times and 10 times and 10 times and 10 times. The description, I forget how Sariputta did the math, because as you know, Sariputta was a PhD in math. He said if you have, if the dimension of the universe is this, then the coverings is the other number, and it's such a big number. It's something like having a pin, and then having, the coverings of the point of a pin. I forget how he described it, but it's just gargantuan. The coverings of the universe are really thick, so it's not just like an eggshell or something. The coverings are vast, as the interior is vast, 10 times, 10 times, 10 times, 10 times, 10 times. That he put his toe through the coverings. The numbers are really big. In the purport here, let me ask the question. Here, the indication is the coverings are 5. Consistently elsewhere, the number is not 5. Question: what's the number of coverings of the universe? 7. So, earth, water, fire, air, sky, that's 5. Then what are the other 2? Someone said it. Who said it? What's the outer covering? No. False ego. False ego. Yeah, so how do you put your toe through false ego? It's okay. They're different. It's not that what Prabhupada wrote 5, that's wrong, so we have to edit what he wrote or said because it's wrong. It's just fine. The description is not necessarily, it's not compellingly complete in every instance. These are coverings of the universe. And what's on the other side of the covering of the universe? The universe is floating in the causal ocean, the Karana ocean. So the Karana water, which is spiritual, came through that hole in the universe. And it not only came through the hole in the universe, but it washed his foot, Vamana's foot, and thus it's double sacred. That's the Ganges. Then there's very detailed, very interesting and detailed descriptions of the descent of the Ganges. Very detailed descriptions. And bringing the Ganges down to the very, very bottom of the universe where Kapila Dev was residing by the arrangements of the sons of Sagara, or grandsons of Sagara, to cleanse and purify the sons of Sagara that were scorched into bones by Kapila when they tried to attack him. There's details and details, very interesting, all those details. But the main point, without all the details, is the entrance into the universe of the celestial, transcendental, not just celestial, waters of the Karana ocean, washing the feet of Vamana, brought the Ganges into within the universe, and then down through all the different parts of the universe. Very interesting narration in the Bhagavatam. And so we know what comes next. We'll hear what comes next tomorrow morning. But Vamana said, you gave me your word, and you haven't kept your word. Where do I put the third step? Because with 2 steps I've covered everything. So we're going to hear that tomorrow. Yes, you'd like to say something? Yeah.
When Mahadev took 2 steps, took everything, does it not convey the impression of the limitation of the universe?
Yeah, it does.
But elsewhere we read that it's unlimited, ever expanding.
The universe is unlimited? Where did you read that? The universe is limited. There's dimension, numbers.
Is it limited to only one particular universe? Or
Each universe has its numbers. How many universes, that's another thing. But each universe is limited. In one sense, the number of universes is also numerical. Doesn't, what the number is, too many to count. But there's not unlimited universes. There's a finite number. And each universe has its boundaries. And those boundaries, the coverings, and within the coverings, the universe itself, they're floating in the causal ocean. Something else? Yes?
Here, Swami Maharaj misunderstood, or Bhagavan just wants to enter him. 3 steps, he has 2 legs, 2 steps, but he's asking for 3 steps. So Swami Maharaj understand that only, what is the size of him, just he step in Dharma. He is thinking like that.
Who? Bali or Vamana?
Bali.
Bali is thinking what?
Thinking only he had 2 feet only, and going to step on only 2 feet. But if hard feet also come, he's asking for 3 feet.
Well, there's different ways of considering. Did Vamana manifest a third foot? But it was 3 paces of land. It's not explicitly that Vamana had 3 feet. 3 paces of land. Now, there's paintings that show 3 legs. But that's, I don't know if that conforms with what Scripture says. He was a 2-legged person and 3 steps or 3 paces. Okay? Okay.
My question is actually like this. If Bali Maharaj do not understand, or even though Shukracharya inform him, his Lord, he will
Yeah.
stay whole plate.
He's ready. He was ready. How that would happen, if your question is, could he have imagined before it happened what would happen? I don't know.
He didn't figure out.
No. If he's the supreme person, because if he's the personality of God, he'll take everything. How it will happen is unknown, but that he can take everything is known. Because his powers, his potencies are unlimited. How he would do, not known, but he could do that and more. Because he's unlimited, with unlimited potencies, etc. He was, so although he was born in a Daitya family, he had bhakti, you could say, from his grandfather. We don't know, I don't know of any exchange between his grandfather, and Bali. There may very well have been some. I don't know. I've not read anything. But he had bhakti within, although he was born in a family of Daityas. So he was ruling from that position.
But Lord's intention is clear.
Yes.
Taken away everything.
Yes. Yes. He put it in a dilemma by his kindness.
So the living entities were not included in the steps?
Of course, because it's the Earth and the higher planets include the population on the Earth and the higher planets. There's population. So it was specifically three paces of land. You're adding, did it include the living entities?
Yes.
Yeah. So my answer is, living entities are dependent upon the land, so it includes.
So how Bali Maharaja was excluded, so he must have been taken with the 2 steps also. So when he...
You're being very clever. But 3 paces of land. So with covering the Earth, he was already covered. The whole planet in 1 step. I mean, what is that? How do you depict that? How do you conceive of that? But it includes, back to your question, it includes Bali. And all the other living entities on the Earth and then above. Everything. In the sense of Vedic culture, the rulers now have become subservient to the Supreme, because the rulers of this tract of land or that tract of land or this planet or that place, the Lord has now covered them. They're now His. Now, Bali is not the king of the universe. So how can he give something that doesn't belong to him, or he's not the ruler of?
Since he was taken up already, so how could he offer the 3rd step?
How could he offer even the 1st step? Because he is not the king of the whole world. Let's supposing he was the king of the whole world. He can offer that much, but not the 2nd step, what to speak of the 3rd. It's a detail. You're getting down and drilling. So he doesn't have the power to give that which isn't his. But it was 3 paces of land, and that was the promise.
लेकिन जब पृथु महाराज ने 2 स्टेप में पूरा वामन ले लिया, तो फिर उसमें पृथ्वी भी ले लिया, तो पृथ्वी के जो जन है, जो बलि महाराज की जनसंख्या पे आ गए, तो फिर तीसरा स्टेप उन्होंने अपना सर कर, तो उसके बाद ये कथा सिर्फ इसी ब्रह्मांड में थी, जब पूरे ब्रह्मांड को स्टेप में ये किया।
He's asking the same question that I asked.
Okay.
So, he said if it was also included in the Bali Maharaj was also included there.
Yeah.
So where did he put the third step? Why did he offer himself, his head or his back?
Because what else does he have to offer? It's the Atma Nivedana principle. He's already the property of Vamana because he's included in the first step. So your question is, how could he offer his body because it was already Vamana's property, including the land and the sky and everything. It's just it's Atma Nivedana, surrendering everything. Something.
I'm from Kerala, South India. So our biggest celebration is Onam, which is based on this pastime. But we believe that Bali Maharaj ruled Kerala once upon a time.
Keep going, just louder. Kerala.
Once upon a time, and he asked Vamana if he could come at least.
He would ask Vamana if he could come at least
once a year to visit his citizens. So we believe that in that Onam festival day, Bali Maharaj comes and visits his citizens. So we celebrate like a big festival.
Nice. Now, let me ask you, when they perform this pastime annually, is there Shastra Praman to support the festival annually, or is it just a tradition?
I think it's a tradition.
Okay. I'm just asking, is it Shastra Praman or is it a tradition?
It's a tradition. It's a harvest time, and like a Christmas, how they celebrate here, same Onam celebrated in that way, based on this pastime.
Nice to celebrate the Supreme Lord under whatever the circumstance. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Gaur Premanandi.
Maybe Partha.
Where'd the little brass deities go? Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman, brass.
It's a festival deity. Is under.
Under?
Yeah. Is there a altar? Yeah.
I didn't have it, but mine, I'll check it again.